Who talked about this? What's a weapon of mass destruction? Folks, everybody talked about that. That's why we went to Iraq. Remember? Because they have weapons of mass destruction. They have poisons. They can kill us. We have to wipe out weapons of mass destruction. Yeah, bombs, atomic bombs. So I want to talk to you about weapons of mass destruction. And weapons of mass destruction are the fork and the knife. What did I just say? Fork and knife. What you put at the end of a fork and knife can be a weapon of mass destruction, or it can be an instrument of health and healing. You can heal with your fork, and you can destroy with a fork. Did you get that lesson? Okay. So, here are some of the leading causes of death. Every third death in America is due to heart disease and stroke. Every fourth death is due to cancer, and every 10th death is due to diabetes. Let me show you what happened. 1928. Now this is a long time ago, right? This is about 90 years ago, 100 years ago almost. We had the idea then that you would have about 1 heart attack per year in an average town. So if you'd come to Loma Linda 100 years ago, and let's just assume it had 25,000 people, you could expect one person having a heart attack a year. That's it. 1 heart attack a year. Today, in America, we have 4,000 a day. Heart disease is a new epidemic. We did not have this disease 100 years ago. This is new. People have the idea, well, I have to die of something, so I might as well have a heart attack, because cancer is not a very pleasant idea. I'm sorry. They didn't have heart disease 100 years ago. It was very rare. Breast cancer, 1960, we had about 1 in 20 women. Now it's 1 in 7. We have more cancer today than ever before. The World Health Organization 2 days ago announced that one of the most important cancer-causing substances, this is called a carcinogen. A cancer-causing substance of the highest grade is processed red meat. What's causing cancer? Processed red meat. That's the highest form of cancer-causing substances. Processed meat. What's processed meat? Give me processed meat. Bacon, good. Corned beef, yeah, that's right. How about a hamburger? These are all number 1 grade carcinogens, cancer-causing substances. Number 2 causing carcinogens are regular red meat. So that's, you have a sirloin steak, or you have some of the pork chops, these kind of things. These are carcinogens. The World Health Organization now says what Ellen G. White said 150 years ago. How did she know? And are we paying attention to it? Are we listening to it now because it comes from the World Health Organization? We have scientific data, or do we have faith that maybe this special lady was a special lady? She said, perfect health depends on perfect circulation. You cannot have perfect circulation. You cannot have clean arteries if you eat meat. It's impossible. You cannot have clean arteries if you have chicken. You cannot. You cannot have clean arteries if you eat pork. You cannot have clean arteries if you have fish. I'm serious about it. How did she know? Why did she say that? Did she have an interest in helping us? Because when she made these announcements, everybody was against her because everybody loved the meat. Can you imagine? And here's a woman in those days who had to talk to conference presidents and union presidents and general conference presidents said, my Lord showed me that. Imagine. Diabetes. Every third baby born to a Filipino family in America will become a diabetic. You have a lot of children in this church here. I was very, very happy to see so many young children here. And every third child will become a diabetic in a lifetime if you follow the American diet. Don't become an American when it comes to diet. Become an American in freedom of religion, democracy and the beauties of this country, don't become an American in terms of the diet that's being offered here. The diet that's being offered in America is setting up a global epidemic in heart disease, in cancer, and obesity. I was just in Canada 2 days ago, big front page coverage in one of the big newspapers. It said globesity, global obesity, globesity, that's what they call it. Coming from the World Health Organization, that the obesity that was pretty much here in America is now spreading all over the world because the Western diet is going to every part of the world. You eat like an American, you die like an American. America has wonderful things to offer, but not the food. Yeah, it tastes good, but it has a kicker to it. It becomes a dangerous, pleasurable experience, but there's a kicker to it. Then look at what do you see there? What do you see there? How many chairs?
3 chairs.
3 chairs. Is there a number on it?
They're labeled by their years.
Labeled by the year, very good. And what do you see down below? What do you see?
Over time, they gradually increase in size.
Very good. Yes. Okay. Gradually, the size of the chair increases, but not very much, does it? Except in the last 25 years. Look what happened now. What happened? I had a man coming to sit next to me in the plane. The plane was just ready to close the doors, and there was one seat still unoccupied. It was right next to mine. I said, yeah, I'm a lucky guy today. I can put my books here, I can do some reading. And then they open up the door one more time, and then a huge man comes down the center aisle, and he sits, of course, in the only seat available, right where I was sitting. Now, I don't mind people that are overweight. I actually enjoy working with people that are overweight. But in this case, I had to work with my attitude, because I had the attitude, I have a free seat, but all of a sudden it's gone. So of course I was disappointed, I had to make a shift. And so as the man came closer to my seat, the seat next to mine, I stood up, and I even lifted the armrest so that he could slip in there, and he just wedged himself right into the seat. And then he said to me, isn't it terrible? They're making these seats smaller every year. And I was a very disciplined man. I didn't say anything to him. I didn't argue with him, but I wanted to. So you see this dramatic increase in the size of chairs. And when you are overweight, when you're obese, your chance of a diabetes is 700% more. You're obese, you become a diabetic. That's the case. It usually is. Very rarely can you find an obese person that is not a diabetic. Diabetes and overweight go hand in hand. They're first cousins. And when you're overweight, you also have to worry about high blood pressure. It's 6 times more often. There you have to worry about arthritis and asthma, and you also increase significantly your risk of breast cancer, and prostate cancer, and colon cancer, and cervical cancer. So obesity is very, very dangerous. Don't gain weight in America. Yeah, don't gain weight in America, okay? Stay slim, okay? Always stay slim, because we have no good answers. What do you do for an obese person in medicine? What do you do for an obese person in medicine? What do you do? You can do some surgery, and you cut out some of the intestine, so you make gutless wonders out of people. We give them fen-phen medication, which actually begins to then after a while show that you might have more heart valve problems. We have no answers for obesity, medically speaking. What do you do with heart disease? What do you do with heart disease? A person has angina pain. What do you do? What do you do? You do a bypass. Does that cure the problem? No, you have just bypassed the solution. You can buy some time with a bypass. You pay $150,000 for a bypass. And in 1 week, 10% are closed again. 1 week. And within 4 years, 60% of the bypass are no longer working. Because nobody told these people, you gotta quit smoking, you gotta do something about your exercise, you have to get your cholesterol down to 150, 160, without drugs, ideally. You have to change your diet. Nobody talks to people like that. Oh, they send a dietitian to say a few nice things and, be careful with salt and don't eat too much fat and, cut back on your meat, but that's it. Do people do it? No. Because if people want to change, they need to be ready for it. And if they're ready for it, they still need about 40 hours, 40 hours of education to really understand it. Just a lecture, even the lecture today, I know, I'm not really accomplishing very much with one lecture. I'm just giving you some ideas so that you can go and study for yourself. One lecture doesn't mean anything. It just gives you some direction, that's all. But it takes a lot of education to really understand and to do it. So if I can tell you that, most Filipinos probably would be much better off if they would be really vegetarians. That's true. But it took me 20-some years of married life to have my wife finally say, okay, I don't need it anymore. I draw a line in the sand. Oh, she would eat less and less and less of chicken. But then occasionally I noticed, oh, she had some chicken again. And what do I do as a good husband? You bad girl. No. I said, well, don't you think you could just leave that alone? Said, yeah, I couldn't find anything else, so I slipped back into my old habits, right? So, to change towards a healthier diet is one of the most difficult things to do. People can do it, but they have to be ready for it. And sometimes they have to have first a heart attack and almost die, and then they become serious about it. And my question is, why don't we do it now? Makes you feel better? Why do you want to see all these animals being killed? Here in America, they kill 1 million animals every hour. 1 million animals every hour. Was that God's plan? Was it God's plan to put some 100,000 cattle into an enclosure? Then you feed them for 6 months a lot of grain so that they get juicy, fatty meat, and then you can engorge yourself on these bloody corpses. Do you really enjoy corpses? Do you enjoy it? Think about it. And these chickens that you eat, these chickens, they're being force-fed in such a way. They gain weight so fast because they get all kinds of, hormones, they get steroids, they have growth substances, and they're so powerfully packed into small areas. They never see the sun. They're not real chickens anymore. They're just egg-laying machines for a while, and then they're force-fed, and the fat, the muscle, becomes so large that their leg bones break under the load. And they fracture, and then they become soup. Folks, this is not really a compassionate way of living. That was never God's intention. It is hard for me to understand that people actually do this to God's creation. Now, I've preached my sermon. You know what I wanted to say, right? Move towards a diet that God can bless. And here's my point. For an airplane to be able to fly, you need 2 wings, right? For a person to be truly healthy at its very best, have clear minds, have energy, feel dynamic, feel like we can accomplish something, you need to have 2 wings. One wing is you have to move towards a vegetarian diet. There is no way around it. I'm sorry. The science is very, very clear. You have to move towards, we call it now, plant-based whole food diet. Plant-based. Right? Because people don't like this vegetarian word. So, we don't call it vegan, we don't call it vegetarian, we just call it plant-based foods. Plants. And just to give you some idea how God has designed the world. In these plants, you have over 100,000 micronutrients. They're very small particles, small nutrients, over 100,000 that give you optimal health. In meat, you have basically zero, because these 100,000 are plant-centered nutrients. Just to give you some idea, when you have an orange, people say, well, I don't have time to eat my orange. What do you get in an orange? What vitamin do you get from an orange? C, yeah, of course. So you don't have time to eat your orange, so what do? You drink a glass of orange juice, right? You don't have time for that. What do? You take a vitamin C pill, tablet. You say, well, I've got my vitamin C, I'm okay. You're wrong. You're wrong. Because with the orange, you actually get not only vitamin C, but over 100 phytochemicals. These are plant-based nutritional components that make the vitamin C to become really bioactive, and that becomes better absorbed. So the vitamin C in the tablet form is not as good as the way God designed it, because in the God package, you have over 100 different chemicals that are making the vitamin C more effective. So are you with me there? So plant foods, high in vitamins, high in nutrients, high in these phytochemicals, over 100,000. That's one wing. The other wing is you need to eat more whole foods. What do you think is a whole food? Broccoli, yeah, another one. You saw it this morning on this side here. What was it? Yeah. Yeah, apples and bananas and raspberries and mangoes and papayas and durian, and these are all whole foods, right? Right? So what's the opposite of whole foods? What's the, processed foods, very good. So refined foods, engineered foods, foods that are made for profit. So you take a whole potato and you make it into potato chips. Is potato chip a whole food? No, it's engineered. Costs you 10 times more. Okay? Loads up with fat, loads up with salt. It's not like the original potato. God knew how to package potatoes. Man doesn't. God knows how to make potatoes for strength. Man knows how to make potato for taste and addiction. Are you with me? Okay. So, when it comes to some of the modern ways that we deal with these diseases, if you have heart disease, we do a bypass, or you do a stent. A stent costs about $35,000, and they don't last. About 40-50% are no longer functioning within 6 months. Bypass stent, a stent. Angioplasty plus stent, 45% are no longer functioning within 6 months. $35,000. I've seen one man that had 21 stents, one after another. Didn't solve the problem. It just buys some time and makes you feel more comfortable, but the disease process continues. Okay. Now, what about medications? These are prescription drugs. People have the idea that medication takes care of you. It doesn't. Well, if you have an infectious disease, it's perfect. If you have a broken leg and you need some pain medication, they're absolutely fantastic. When it comes to chronic disease, it doesn't work. What's a chronic disease? help me out. What do you give me? What's the definition of a chronic disease? Chronic disease is something that comes back, it stays there, it hangs around, right? A chronic disease doesn't get cured. A chronic disease stays forever. So if you have heart disease, you figure, I'll have it for the rest of my life, right? I can do a bypass, maybe it helps me for a while, but it doesn't really help you for good. You have diabetes, you take your insulin as a type 2 diabetic, will the disease stay around? Or will it be cured? It will stay around because every year the insulin goes higher and higher and higher and higher because the insulin has a side effect, it causes you to become overweight. So as you take more insulin for the diabetes, you get larger and larger and larger. As you get larger and larger and larger, you need more and more and more insulin. So as you take more and more and more insulin, you get more and more overweight and overweight and overweight. And you see what happens? So you go from 10 units of insulin to 50 units of insulin to 100 units of insulin to 200 units of insulin to 300 units of insulin. Have you solved the problem? No. You just think you're doing something. And in the process, you have to inject every so often, every day. Miserable way to live. You can have turned it off in 4 weeks. But just taking care of the cause. We'll talk about that in just a few minutes. You can turn off insulin-using diabetics. You can turn off the insulin. You can turn off the diabetes in 4 to 8 weeks. I can take medical students and they're lean, and I give them a certain kind of a diet, and in 4 weeks, 2 weeks, half of them, 7% of them are diabetics. They're lean. And I give them a pound of sugar a day, they don't become diabetics. I give them a lot of fat, they become diabetics. And still people have this idea, well, I cannot handle sugar, therefore I'm a diabetic. No, there's some other things that we need to think about. It has been around for over 100 years, but it has never been really properly utilized. So when it comes to prescription drugs, 11% of all the deaths in America are due to prescription drugs. Adverse effects of these drugs. And many people take 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 pills a day. This is very, very dangerous. Whenever we see a person over 60 years of age that takes 4 medications a day, we have no idea as doctors what these medications will do as they interact together on the body. And what I want to do here, I want to give you a new respect for these powerful chemical agents. Sometimes we need medication. We do. But the first line of defense should always be, why is a doctor prescribing these medications to me and for me? Is he just a drug pusher? And that's what happens quite often. The pharmaceutical industry is very, very powerful with physicians. But you know, that's what we teach in medical school. You diagnose the ill, match it with a pill, send them home with a bill. Next one. We have 10 minutes to do it. So medicine has become big business. It has dehumanized physicians that wanted to become physicians because they wanted to help people. They've fallen into a trap where medicine today is big business, and it's largely influenced by powerful pharmaceuticals and surgical procedures. We need to become involved and take care of ourselves. We need to find a balance there. So the point I made is, whenever you have more than 4 medications and you're over 60 years of age, be very careful. I'll give you an example. You have some high blood pressure. Your doctor says you have hypertension. You have 145 over 95. You need to take medication. No, you don't need to. No. If you come to me, I will tell you, first of all, how much salt do you take? Well, I take the normal amount that Americans take, which is 10 times more than the body needs. Hello? Are you with me? The body becomes a salt mine. And Ellen G. White said, take a little salt. How did she know? So we're taking all this sodium, all this salt. It's in the food. It's in processed food, number one. You say, well, okay, no more salt shaker. That doesn't make much difference. The salt is in processed foods that you buy, ready to be used, put in the microwave oven, salty. You go out and eat at a restaurant, salty, salty, salty. And then we learn from science, you should also have not only a low sodium, a low salt, but also high potassium. That means eat more fruits and vegetables. People don't eat fruits and vegetables anymore. Very few people eat 10 fruits and vegetables a day. That's what the government now recommends. 10 fruits and vegetables. We're lucky if some people eat 2 a day. So you have not enough potassium. So when you have this high sodium intake and then you're overweight and you don't exercise and you have arguments at home, guess what happens to your blood pressure? Shh. Right? And you hate your job? Shh. What happens? Yeah. So you come to me and I help you. Well, maybe you should consider a job change. Is there a way that you can handle your stresses with your spouse a little bit differently? Could you develop some discussion points? Could you be a little nicer to your spouse? Could you negotiate? Instead of having arguments and you're always right? No. Could you do something about your salt intake? Could you buy more fruits and vegetables and learn how to cook simple foods? Get yourself a crock pot, a slow cooker, which is beautiful, easy to do. You say, well, I don't really like these foods. Well, you need to understand that the taste buds change in 20, 30 days. After 20, 30 days, you no longer like the food that you used to be willing to die for. You give me a donut and I say to my, oh, no, can't handle it. It's spongy, it's soft, it's sweet, it's, no. Well, 30, 40 years ago, when I changed my lifestyle, I would have loved to have one of those donuts. Oh, Krispy Kreme, they used to have them in Germany years and years ago. Bavarian kind of. Oh my goodness, yes. I would die for those. Now I can hardly stand it. If we have a little bit of ice cream in the house sometimes, it's no problem. I will have 1 teaspoon and then I say, that's enough. When I came from Germany, many years ago, after the war, and I came to Canada, and I found ice cream, a whole quart. I mean, wow. And it was cheap. And I thought, here I can make up for lost time. And wow, I mean, it was gorgeous. It was glorious. I mean, mint with chocolate chips inside there. Oh my goodness, yes. You give it to me now, if it's there, I have a teaspoon, it's too sweet. Your taste buds change. People say to me, if I have to live like this, I'd rather die. No, you don't understand. God made those taste buds to adjust themselves to healthy food and also to over-rich foods. So every 10, 20 days, the taste buds change inside your oral cavity. You have 10,000 taste buds there, they change. And while you perhaps miss during those first 10, 20 days, you miss your sodium and everything tastes very flat. It's true. People always say, I can't stand it. And I said, just give it 10, 20 days, you'll be okay. And they do it. And then I seduce them. I give these men a real high salt food like they usually had, a commercial soup, like those Campbell soups, right? They're loaded with salt. I say, oh, terrible. The cook must have dumped the salt shaker in the soup here. There's something wrong here. I said, no. You liked it 30 days ago. Remember? That's what you used to like. Taste buds. You can change them. Now, okay, I need to pick on somebody else. This lady is very good here, actually. If I need some help, I'll call on you. Sir, what do you see there?
I'm reading treating symptoms or causes. I see people cleaning up the floors and it looks like water. It's leaking from the ceiling.
What do you think the answer is? Is the answer to mopping or is the answer to send the plumber in? Send the plumber in? Tighten up the pipes? But you see what we do in medicine today, in the commercialized aspect of medicine, we pass out color-coded umbrellas for $150 a piece. Is that the answer? Not really, is it? So do we treat the symptoms? Yeah, like you said. Or should we take care of the causes? The causes are up there, right? Not down here. And so these doctors are all working crazy hours, day and night. And their only goal is to keep the floor dry. Is that? I always tell my medical colleagues, I said, why don't you take care of the causes? Well, we're not really trained to do that. Because when you take care of the causes, of the disease. That means you have to have communication skills, right? You have to have people that are interested in what you're trying to tell them, right? You can be a good communicator, but if the person is not interested, there's nothing you can do. So sometimes you have to awaken their interest. Sometimes you have to put a little salt into their water to make them thirsty, right? And then, of course, in medicine, in the commercial side of medicine, many physicians have 10 minutes, maybe 50 minutes if it's a long time, to give to each patient. What can you do in 10, 15 minutes? Nothing. You can diagnose the ill, you work very hard, you have a very sharp mind. Yeah, I know what you have. Then you figure out what kind of a medication do I give this person, and then you send them home with a bill. Well, that person may not need any medication because the drug companies have told you that's the way to go. Maybe you should use what we call now a lifestyle medicine approach, where you actually put people into a special group. So you have 10 hypertensives, 10 people with high blood pressure, and you do it yourself, or you have a special nurse or a special educator saying, now let me tell you about high blood pressure. Here's the things that you can do, and or you as a physician can do it. Here's some of the things that you need to do. If you do this, within 2 to 3 weeks, your blood pressure will be so low, I probably have to reduce your medication. And then you can say to a patient, a man, and maybe you would have to suffer of impotence, which could be the result of medication. Many men would be very happy to change their diet instead of being impotent because of medication. And of course, this costs a lot of money. In 1960, we spent 5% of our income on medical care. This year, we spent almost 20% of our income on medical care. We're spending 20% of our income on medical care. And do Americans live longer? They're number 46 in the Register of Nations in terms of longevity. You cannot buy health with money indiscriminately. You can have good diagnosis. American medicine is the finest in the world, probably. We can do excellent diagnosis. We can do some excellent work with emergency care, with fractures, with you have an accident, you have an infectious disease. American care is unexcelled in providing answers. But when it comes to the chronic diseases, it's a different story. What's a chronic disease? Heart disease, diabetes, hypertension, arthritis, heartburn. You can go down the list. Because these diseases are caused by our lifestyle choices, or they're caused by the culture that promotes them. I mean, they tell you. If you have ever seen a tube of Pringles, and I'm sure you would never eat those, I know. But let's say that you had seen them. It would tell you right on there, it says, once you pop it, you cannot. How did you know this? Do you see? Once you stop it, you cannot. Once you pop it, you cannot. They have actually built enough salt and fat into a Pringle that you receive when you have just a taste of it. Within less than 1 second, there will be an electrical impulse, a neurological impulse that will go to the pleasure center of your brain, and it will say, "Ah, this is great. I've gone to heaven. I'm in the bliss point of experience. I feel great. Give me another one." And nobody can eat only one Pringle. You have to eat the whole thing, and then you have peace. The same thing is true for M&Ms. You have one M&M, these chocolate-covered things, chocolate inside, nicely covered, different colors. You have it on your tongue. Within less than a second, it sends a message to the brain pleasure center. This is wonderful. You have reached your bliss point. You have gone to heaven. You have reached the nirvana. And you say, okay, another one, another one, another one. And you have no peace until the whole bag is gone. True or false? And the same thing is true not only for salt, but also the amount of sugar and the amount of fat. And if you have these one or two or three things together or only alone, you're gonna, because these kind of hyper palatable foods, they're tasting really brilliant, they set up a process whereby the brain activity is diverted. You're actually changing the wiring of your brain. And these products, most of these products today are produced by a huge industry that is called Philip Morris. Have you heard of Philip Morris? Who's Philip Morris? The cigarette manufacturing companies. Do you think that the cigarette industry knows something about how to habituate you and how to addict you to cigarettes? Do they know something about this? They've gone to the best research labs, brain research labs in the world, and they've figured out how much sugar, how much salt, and how much fat it takes, so that you become hijacked. And you can no longer just say no. You can't. Sometimes the pastor says to me, well, I told him to pray about it. No. This is a mental thing. This is a brain activity. What you need to do is go into a shop to what do you have up here? Albertsons, and you have Stater Brothers. And don't buy this stuff. Once it's in your cart, you bring it home, you eat it. True or false? You ought to pray when you go into the store. And don't pray for forgiveness, no. Lord, make me strong. You know, there are 60,000 foods in those big marketplaces. 60,000. And you probably only need 59,910. All you need, fresh produce, some whole grains, and some beans, not in cans, because this is over salted. You don't ever want to buy beans in cans unless it says no salt added. Are you with me there? So I buy them like dried beans, put them in a crock pot overnight, and the next morning it's all done. It's easy. So the lesson here is, again, be very careful for foods that are coming out of the hand of people, manufacturers, because all they want is to make the profit, which is understandable, but it's not in your best interest health-wise. God is the only one that knows how to package foods perfectly right. You go from corn to Doritos, that's God packaged, this is man packaged. Doritos have nothing to do with corn. Doritos is 65% fat. That's what that is. A little bit of corn in there and lots of salt. And lots of money that you pay for it. Folks, we are being seduced by the marketing and the advertising and the taste of these products. So, the point I want to make here with this slide is that 84% of all the money we spend on medical care, 84% is spent on chronic disease management. We don't cure, we just manage. We make you feel more comfortable. We're not curing you. Any questions? Okay, turn to your neighbor. Take about 2 or 3 minutes and talk about what you have learned so far during the last half an hour. What ideas did you pick up? What makes you angry? What have you heard before? Tell the person. Okay, ready to go. 3 minutes left. I will ask some of you in a few minutes to give me the answer of what you discussed. So, get ready. Okay, time is up. Let me ask some of you what you discussed. Well, Joyce, what did you discuss with your friend here?
God's foods are the best.
Okay, very good. God's foods are the best. Let me give you another line like what you said. If you want to be healthy, if you want to have healthy foods, if you want to be a healthy person, eat foods that don't have nutrition labels. What did I just say? Eat foods that don't have nutrition labels. Have you ever seen a nutrition label on a mango? Ever seen a nutrition label on potatoes? Ever seen nutrition labels on brown rice unless they're packaged in a certain way? No. Have you ever seen a nutrition label on apples? On peas that you buy, loose, large. If you want to buy healthy foods, buy foods that don't have nutrition labels, because God doesn't need nutrition labels on his products. Nutrition labels are only given for foods that are either too high or too low in salt, in sugar, and protein, in fiber, in nutrients. These are man-made foods. Are you with me there? If you want to be healthy, try to rely more on foods that don't have nutrition labels. And then you come to me and say, well, then I can have my meat because there's usually no label on meat, right? But it's coming. The meat industry has fought that for so many years. As of next year, they have to have nutrition labels on there, and they're kind of scared because when you look at a sirloin steak, you will find out that this is 75% fat. What's the amount of fat in a sirloin steak? Help him out. Help him out. What's the amount of fat in a sirloin steak? 75%. So when you think you have a steak and you think, well, I have some protein now, that's 75% fat. They've just marketed this idea that you have to have protein, and protein is found in meats. Wrong idea. You have much more protein in beans, but people don't tell you that, do they? Okay. Yes. That comes later on. Okay, you're ahead of the game here. Just okay. All right, that's a good question. So, how about cheese? Is cheese a man-made food or is it divinely made? It's a man-made food. Does it have a nutrition label? Yes, it does. What's the amount of fat in cheese? 70%. And it's all the wrong kind of fat. This is called saturated fat, which turns your liver on to make excessive amount of cholesterol, which causes the heart disease and everything that comes with that. Okay. So if you want to eat healthy food, what should we do? Eat more foods that don't have any nutrition labels. So, yes, are there questions? Again? What was it? Oh, yeah, that sounds pretty fishy, doesn't it? Yeah, you're right. They're supposed to have nutrition labels in the next year because the meat industry has refused to put the label on there, but now they have to do it next year. And fish too. Some of the fish can be 70% fat. Yeah. And when you look at chicken, chicken used to be reasonably low in fat. But now the way that chickens are raised, they're no longer running around out there. They're just in cages. You have 15,000 chickens that never see the sun. They're pumped full with all kinds of medications because otherwise they would get sick. These chickens, they are now high in fat. And it's, again, the wrong kind of fat. And it's really abuse of animals, what happens there. So you need to really think this through. I know, I'm married to a Filipina lady, and I just love you folks. I really do. But you have to really think about these issues. I know what you like and what you do. I was in the Philippines, and they asked me, are you vegetarian? I said, yes, and they gave me chicken. I said, no, I'm a vegetarian. Well, I said, but chicken is not, is vegetarian. That's okay, isn't it? Oh. Hello? It has two eyes, it has a face, it has a mother, it has a liver. No. But you see, it's in the culture, but we have to be willing to swim against the current of the culture. Don't swim with the current, because only dead fish swim with the current. You want to be live, right? You have to go against the culture sometimes. Remember, only dead fish swim with the current, okay, with the culture. So here's the big problem. The big problem is found in this slide here. In 2075, they developed McDonald's outside of Loma Linda. And it has swept the world ever since. It started in San Bernardino, the McDonald brothers. They're purchased by the McDonald company, then they kept the name, and they have been the largest influence. And the culture changed from slow food to fast food. The country changed from whole foods to engineered foods. The country changed from eating at home, cooking at home, to eating out. And the potatoes became potato chips, and the corn became Doritos, and the water that we used to drink became sweet, sugary drinks, and the beans became burgers, and everything changed. It all began in 1975. Remember when the obesity epidemic began? Remember when the epidemic of heart disease began? It's right there. So everything has changed. You know, we used to eat oats, now we eat Oreos. Right? We used to get our protein from beans and from grains. Now we think we have to get our protein from chicken and fish and meat. We used to get our calcium from plants. And then, about 150 years ago, the milk industry came into commercial prominence, and they sold us on the idea that unless you drink 3 glasses of milk, you're going to be falling apart. Your bones will all break. You will have osteoporosis. You have to have milk 3 glasses a day, or you have to have ice cream or cheese. Buy our product. That's what they're saying. And yet the countries that drink the most milk and eat the most cheese and have the most ice cream have the most fracture rates in the world. America's way up there with osteoporotic fractures. The whole issue of osteoporotic fractures is not that you don't get enough calcium, that you're losing too much calcium. And you lose the calcium from your bones because you're on an animal protein-based diet. It causes them to release the calcium to buffer, you know, to some of our physicians here, to buffer the metabolic acidosis. And then when you have a lot of salt, that does the same thing. So these are factors that create an acid kind of an environment in the body. And then the bones release calcium to neutralize the acidic environment, which can become dangerous to the body. And so you lose that calcium, and that's the problem, not that you don't get enough. But the milk industry has made it a point to let you know that unless you get your 3 glasses of water and you get your calcium, you're going to be in trouble. Think about it. 150 years ago, they didn't have these special glass containers for the milk. They didn't have these special plastic containers that you can get milk in today, right? Right? Just think, you wouldn't have these convenient packaging materials, and you would have to go out into a meadow. Get out there, try to find yourself a cow, and then you have a couple of helpers, they hold the cow down, and then you lie underneath that cow, and you get I got one more glass more milk, and then I'm going to be okay. It's ridiculous, isn't it? But that's what we have tried to tell American people. You need to have 3 glasses of milk or dairy products. No, you don't need to. You don't need to have milk. You can get your silk milk. You can have your hemp milk, which is very nice. There are 40 different kinds of non-dairy milk, and they usually have more calcium than you have in milk. And you don't have to worry about the animal protein in milk. So let's take a look here. This is, let me ask you this. This is a young man here that's very eager to answer questions. How many teaspoons of sugars do you think the average person in America eats?
I don't have any idea.
You don't have any idea? That's okay. Be courageous. Take a guess. Average person, average adult, how many teaspoons of sugar a day?
20.
20 teaspoons of sugar.
40.
40? 1,000 teaspoons of sugar? That's a much better number. Yeah, she's really smart. She got smart very quickly there, didn't she? Yeah. Yeah, the average consumption is about 30 teaspoons of sugar per person. Now, Lydia and I, we don't have 30 teaspoons a day. That means that my neighbor must be eating my share, so they have 40 and 50, right? That's what we do. And you say, how is that possible? Well, take a look. You have 3 cans of soda pop, and right there you have about 30 to 35 teaspoons of sugar. No nutritional value, just calories. Okay? Just calories. How about the banana split? 25 teaspoons of sugar. How about one milkshake? That is 153 divided by 15. That's 10. Let me see. 153 divided by 4. That's 40 teaspoons of sugar in one milkshake. That's a big one. Right? 40, there's no nutritional value to sugar. But you get 2,000 calories. Now, most of you are sort of built like my wife is, right? So you ladies, you're probably 5 feet, 5'1", 5'2", 4'11", right? 5 feet. You need about 1,600 calories a day. You have one of these milkshakes, 2,000 plus. That's mostly sugar and mostly fat. And so here in America, when you add up all these calories, almost 50% of the calories that people eat have no nutritional value. You have no nutritional value. These are called empty calories. Just taste, which is questionable, taste and calories. You eat these foods? I talked to you about this sugar, salt, and fat, of how the industry puts that into the foods, the manufactured foods, so as to hook you. Here's the book just came out last year, an award-winning book, How the Food Giants Hooked Us. This is a meticulously researched book that tells a chilling story of how the processed food industry is making a fortune by slowly poisoning an unwitting population. Big time. Be careful with these processed foods. If they come in crinkly bags, be careful. If they're manufactured, be careful. Buy foods that don't have nutritional labels as often as you can. Be careful with animal products, even though they don't have any product labels yet, they will have them. Okay? Be careful. Because cholesterol that gets into your artery system only comes from animal products. And chicken has as much cholesterol as you have in red meat. Same thing. If anything, it's more. Okay, we already talked about a sirloin steak has about 75% fat. And you can see what happened in America in 1900 and 2000. The consumption of meat has almost doubled. People today eat about 200 pounds of meat in a year per person, which means they eat about 12 cows in a lifetime. I mean, can you imagine you're eating 12 cows? I mean, everything of this cow. From the lips to the tail, you eat the whole thing. Yeah, they have oxtail soup, right? And then you eat the udder. It's all there. It's utterly ridiculous, but people do this. And if you cannot sell it, they put it into hot dogs. If I would tell you what's in a hot dog, you would never eat another hot dog in your life. And then people eat 25 hogs and 2,000 chickens to boot. And then they wonder why they have heart disease, why their arteries begin to clog up. And then look at the amount of cheese. It started in 1970. Okay. All right. Who's volunteering? Are you volunteering her? She's a good friend? You don't want her as a friend. She's okay? Okay. Let's see, what's the question? Yeah. Okay. Do you see this is the consumption of cheese from 1920 to 1940 to 1960, and then all of a sudden in 1970, it goes way up. Do you see? It used to be like 3.8 pounds. Now it's 32.8 pounds, right? So we have seen a dramatic increase in the consumption of cheese starting around 1970, 75. What do you think happened in 1975 that all of a sudden the cheese went up so high? What happened? What happened?
Increase of heart disease.
Why do they all of a sudden eat so much cheese? Help her. Do it as a team. But you got into trouble here now. Now save her.
Why do we eat so much?
Yeah, why did we all of a sudden eat so much cheese since 1975? What happened in 1975? Why all of a sudden so much more cheese consumption?
Well, you have all the fast foods like Pizza Huts and hamburgers with lots of cheese and spaghetti. Those finished foods or, ready to eat foods, they are really...
You make a great team here, right? So what happened in 1975? Cheeseburgers, pizzas. Cheese was everywhere and something else happened. Here's what happened. In 1975, the American people began to understand that the saturated fat in milk, what did I say? That's in whole milk, was actually causing heart disease. And they found that in 1 glass of whole milk, you have as much saturated fat as you have in 3 strips of bacon. Now, is bacon a healthy food? Hardly. So I said, you mean the amount of saturated fat which causes the liver to make the extra cholesterol is as much in 1 glass of milk as you have in 3 strips of bacon? Wow! And the people said, we don't want any more saturated fat in milk. And the dairy industry said, okay, no problem. We'll take the milk out. So it used to be a 4% fat milk. Then they said, okay, we'll give you 2% fat milk. And people said, no, it's still too much. So they give you 1% fat milk. That's called skim milk or blue water. Right? Right? And so that's when it all happened. So the population began to shift from whole milk to skim milk. What do you think they did with all the fat that took off? They sent it to the Philippines? To China? What did they do? They made it into cheese. And since that time, there are whole laboratories that do nothing else but to develop new recipes for new dishes that you never had before, so they can use the cheese, because cheese is everywhere and it's very cheap. They don't know what to do with all the cheese, and they make it available at a fraction of even the cost. And have you ever wondered why everything is in cheese? Spaghetti cheese factory, what is it? Old spaghetti factory, all this kind of thing. Everywhere you look is cheese, 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 cheese. Cheeseburgers, cheeseburgers, cheeseburgers. Cheese, 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 cheese. Be careful. Cheese is a #1 source of saturated fat that causes the liver to go into overdrive and making excessive cholesterol, which is a #1 factor for heart disease. If you ask me, would you rather have cheese or small steak? What do you think I would say? What would I say? I would say, well, what mode do you want to use? Do you want to be shot or do you want to be hanged? You tell me how you want to die. Either way is not in your best interest. But maybe sometimes settling for a small steak might in some ways be sometimes better than having large amount of cheese. And Adventists in general have oftentimes excelled in choosing cheese because they thought, well, I need to get my protein. I don't eat meat, so I take some dairy products. Wrong idea. You don't need to worry about protein. You don't need to worry about calcium. You get this all in the way that God produced food. God didn't make too many mistakes, if any. Any questions? Yes.
growing up eating all the chicken, the meat, and the fish, my question is, what is the effective way to slowly transition from that food to plant-based diet?
How do you make the transition from changing your diet? Yeah, how would you do this? You marry a good vegetarian chef. You got that already? So then you're safe, right? Basically, it starts with education. It starts with education. Some of the best ways to teach people is to do it in groups. Because when you do it alone, unless you're kind of sort of a nerdy guy, you can do it, you battle it out with the computer. Usually people are social beings and they kind of like to have some accountability structures. They like to have some encouragement. And if you have 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 20 people, they help each other. When we did trip programs near Chicago, we had 5,000 people in the trip program there. And guess what happened? Everybody in the town, that had 170,000 people, everybody talked about chip, the health improvement program. And we had 27 restaurants. They all served chip food. It was all healthy. It was all low in salt. It was low in fat. It was low in salt. It was high in fiber. It was nutritious. And the people made good money. And the restaurants kissed my feet after 1 year and said, "You may help us to make more profit than any other time because we gave them the same prices as if we had meat in those dishes, but it didn't have any meat because it was vegetarian." So, education provided to inspire people, that's probably the best way to do it. Don't wait for a heart attack and then you do it. Okay? Don't wait for a stroke and then you do it. Do it now. Don't wait. You can turn this disease around. Now, this is the most important slide for you today. Okay? Now let me see these two ladies that are just having a discussion here. Okay. Before you what do you see on this picture? What do you see on this picture? This is the number of calories that we eat from different foods. No. We're a team. Okay. We're doing this together. So the yellow golden color, down below it says, it represents what? Is it refined?
It's refined processed foods.
So what does it mean? 51% of the calories.
Refined processed foods. Refined processed foods. It's the dairy and animal foods. It's the fruits, vegetables, grains, and legumes.
And we said it comes mostly from processed foods and then followed by dairy and animal products. And what is the second one? What is the least one? The green one. What's the green color?
Fruits, vegetables, grains, and legumes.
Excellent student. Okay. See? You know how to read. Yeah, it's working well. So, God's food in America only represent 14% of what we eat. 14% of what we eat today comes out of the hand of God. These are fruits and vegetables, and what else? Whole grains like oats and beans and wheat, brown rice, right? And then beans and lentils, and maybe a few nuts and some avocados. Do you think that the arch enemy of God has found a solution of promoting a lot of chronic diseases? What do you think the arch enemy of God did? He shifted God's foods into man-made foods. He shifted them from the green color to the yellow color. Are you with me there? Do you see this? In the garden, in paradise, it was only a mango, right? that tempted Eve, right? Today, you go to supermarkets and you have 60,000 foods, of which probably, as I mentioned earlier, almost all of them you don't need. What's the effect of this dietary change? In the garden, people had exalted mental function. They were not burdened down by sin. Today, the world is really facing some disastrous developments. So let me just go very quickly into what's happening to heart disease. You see, this is the heart the size of a fist. There's some arteries on the top. These are called the coronary arteries. And the coronary arteries, this is a cross section. This is the outer wall here, but they're filled up with calcium and cholesterol and kind of certain fatty substances and certain dead cells. So this person, instead of having a wide open artery like from here to there, now only has about 35% of the original openness left over. Let me show you what happens. Can we show this? Are you ready for this? This is a short clip. Let's see if we have some sound.
I first woke up, so to speak, when I was working on the anesthesia service, learning how to put people to sleep. And I was seeing my patients for the next day's surgery, for coronary artery bypass surgery, in order to bypass clogged arteries in their heart. Because it was late at night, I drew the man's blood test, and when I took the blood to the laboratory and had it processed, I couldn't believe my eyes. Now, normally, this liquid layer floating on top of the blood clot is quite transparent. It's yellow, but quite clear. You can see right through it. The blood in this patient's tube, however, was anything but clear. The serum floating on his clot was thick and greasy white. It looked like glue. In fact, it stuck to the sides of the blood tube when I shook the tube. I went back to the patient. I said, Mr. Phillips, did you eat before you came to the hospital tonight? He said, yes. I said, what did you have? He said, I had a cheeseburger and a milkshake. And when he said that, I realized that what I was looking at in his tube was all the fat in the beef burger, all the butter fat in the cheese, and the butter fat in the ice cream and in the milkshake. And all this fat had oozed out into his blood and actually turned his blood fatty. Well, 30, 40, 50 years of keeping your blood very fatty creates changes in the blood vessels that are very dangerous. Over the years, arteries can become clogged with fatty material. Then a blood clot can form, blocking the blood flow completely. If the artery leads to the heart, the lack of oxygen can cause heart muscle to die. That's a heart attack. If the clogged artery leads to the brain, the patient has a stroke. The next morning, we took Mr. Phillips to the operating room, and I put him to sleep, and the surgeon opened up his chest. And from these arteries, he began pulling out these yellow, greasy deposits of fatty material called atherosclerosis.
Do you want to see this again? Are you feeling okay? What you saw was the #1 killer disease in America. It is at the foundation of most of our circulation-related chronic diseases. What you just saw there was the buildup of atherosclerosis, a hardening, narrowing of the arteries, so that not enough blood can go through the arteries to reach your brain, your eyes, your ears, your heart, man's sex organ, and so on, and they begin to deteriorate. That is the basic underlying disease symptom. Let me show you something else. You're born with clean arteries when you were there, see, 0. You had about 20% narrowing by the time you were 20 years of age. You were about 60% narrowed by the time you were 50, 60. And many people today at the age of 70 or 80, they live on a very small slit, a very small opening. And all you need now is a blood clot, and that seals this small opening, and you're a goner. When I was in China, we looked at some coronary arteries. This is what we found there. They had 20% narrowing found in farmers that were 85 years of age. Are you with me? These people were 85 years of age. In America, these people have the same narrowing at the age of 20 because of the way we eat. And when you have this narrowing process, and it happens to your coronary arteries, and you have to worry about a heart attack or angina. If it happens to the arteries to the brain, you have to worry about a stroke or memory function loss or hearing loss or visual loss. These are all related to atherosclerosis affecting the different arteries in the body. If it happens to affect the vessels to the kidney, then you have to worry about hypertension. And you can see here, this disease, atherosclerosis, can appear in every major vessel in your body. It's the same disease, even though it has different names, and people don't seem to understand that they're all related. For instance, some men develop first impotence, and then they have a heart attack. Other men first get a stroke, and then they have a heart attack, and then they have impotence. Some people first lose their eyesight or macular degenerative processes by the time they're 60, 65 years of age, and then they have the heart attack. And people say, well, it's interesting. No, it's not that interesting. It's very clear. These diseases are all interrelated. They have one common pathway, and that is that the cholesterol is building up inside the artery. It's filling out the luminal space, narrows them down. You can no longer bring adequate blood to these different organs and nutrients, and the systems, the organs begin to deteriorate. And to some, it's sometimes the brain. For other people, it is the ears. For other people, it's the eyes. For some other people, it's the heart. Some people, it's in the male, it's the sex organ, and. But it's basically one disease. So let's take a quick look at this here. This is what predicts the disease. This is what you see here. The one at the top are the big ones. It's cholesterol, blood pressure, and smoking. These are three big drivers. And then if you have diabetes, and you have overweight, you have triglycerides, you don't exercise, and you have stress, then you're sitting duck. Just to give you some idea here, if you have a high cholesterol and you have high blood pressure, you're a smoker, you have diabetes, you're 35 years of age, you're a man, the chances of a heart attack in 6 years is 140 times more likely to happen with this profile when compared to having only 150 for your cholesterol. You have low blood pressure, you don't smoke, you don't have any diabetes. So the differential here is 140-fold. And sometimes people come to me and say, well, how come my husband had a heart attack? I mean, he always looked so healthy. He was a smoker. Yeah. He had a cholesterol of 200, yeah. He had high blood pressure, yeah. He was overweight, yeah. Well, these are the driving forces of developing a heart attack or a stroke or all the other problems that we talked about. So we can do something about this. And please note, everything with the yellow star means that these are factors that are largely under the control of our lips. Fork over knives. Remember? Forks, diet. Cholesterol is 85% diet. Folks, we don't want to put people on these cholesterol-lowering drugs. Number one, they're expensive. Number two, they have side effects. They're relatively safe, but they bring your cholesterol down, but they do not prevent a heart attack in primary prevention. Did I say that right? You can bring people to a doctor, and they have not had a heart attack, and the doctor prescribes a statin drug to lower their cholesterol. The cholesterol comes down, but the heart disease occurs nevertheless because it doesn't really do much for the heart disease. It doesn't have a clinical effect. We now know that it takes about 100 men to take these powerful drugs for 5 years to save one heart attack in 5 years. Cost $500,000 in medication. And you could have turned that off just like that in 3 weeks by going on a vegetarian diet. Loma Linda, let me show you very quickly here. These are now the people In North America, about 10% of them are vegans, 30% are lacto or vegetarians, 10% eat fish, and 50% are meat eaters. Where are you? You don't have to raise your hand. You figure it out. Are you a vegan? No animal products, no milk, no fish. Are you a vegetarian? Lacto-vegetarian, which means you don't eat any meat, no fish, no chicken, but you have dairy and you have eggs. Are you in that category? That's about 30% of the Americans here and Canadians. And then, are you a fish eater? About 10% of the Adventists are fish eaters. No meat, but fish. And then about 50% of the people are eating meat. It would be very interesting to take a look at the Adventist Health Study and to see how people from the Filipino church here, how they stacked up, wouldn't it? Because that will give you a pretty good idea how long people will live and what disease they will have. Think about it. Now, who do you think is doing best in health outcomes? Who do you think is the healthiest of all these different kind of groups of eaters? Fish eaters? Fish eaters? What do you think? Chicken eaters? Okay, let's take a look. The government spent $30 million on some of these big studies, and the Adventist Health Study is one of the best studies ever done. Here's what you find. In Adventism, women that are meat eaters, meat-eating Adventists, they usually weigh about 40 pounds more than vegan Adventists. Men that are meat eaters in the Adventist church usually weigh on the average 30 pounds more than the vegan Adventists. When it comes to diabetes, the Adventist people that are meat eaters, this is 6.3%, this is 1.6%. This group is 4 times more at risk of having diabetes than the people down here. And you can choose anything you want to. You say, well, I don't really want to be that healthy. Just give me some cheese and some eggs, and I settle for 2.2%. That's okay. And you say, well, I don't really want to be that healthy either. I just want to have my fish. So you get 3%, which is about half the amount of developing diabetes when compared to meat eaters. How about high blood pressure people? In the Adventist Health Study, on 100,000 people, those who are meat eaters, they had 19 versus 5, about 4 times more high blood pressure medication than people that were in the green color. So what do you want? What do you want to be? You want to have high blood pressure? I can give you some good ideas how to do it. Right? Go to the red color and have a lot of salt, right? Don't eat too many vegetables and fruits because you want to have your potassium very low. Make sure you gain some weight. Don't exercise. Yeah, it's great. How about high cholesterol? You want to be on drugs? Oh, I can show you how to do that. Just go to the red color. Eat lots of fish, eat lots of chicken, eat lots of cheese, eat lots of red meat, and you'll be very successful in being in the red category. If you don't want to have cholesterol medication in your system, just go to the green color, and it's virtually unheard of to have people in the vegan group to be on any cholesterol-lowering drugs. It's all up to you. What do you want? You want to have 15 little bottles on your windowsill with all the different medications? You take this at 8 o'clock, this at 9 o'clock, this at 10 o'clock. It's a full-time job. Or you want to be vibrant and well. Okay, and praising the Lord. And singing while you're in trouble, right? So, these are some of the people from Harvard. These are some of the world-famous people. They've said, look, we have known for many, many years that what drives these killer diseases is related to the diet and to our lifestyle. Change your lifestyle and live. It's very simple. We don't want you to become vegans because I think you should do that. No. It's up to you. I mean, what kind of a life do you want? You want to make life miserable for your surviving spouse? You want to be having a stroke and being cared for? by all kinds of people, but you'll be healthy and well and active and have clear mental powers. And you can thank the Lord for every day and praise Him for what He has done, because He provided the food, not the manufacturers. Now, I want to close now by pointing out a few things. This is the idea that if you already have heart disease, and almost everybody has heart disease over 40 years of age, it just hasn't shown up yet. But your arteries are narrowing down, you probably have 50-60% narrowing, and you only get the symptoms when you're about 70-80%, right? So most people already have significant artery narrowing. And you say, well, why didn't you talk to me 30-40 years ago when I was younger? I could have prevented all this trouble. Now I have the disease. Now I have diabetes, I have heart disease, I have high blood pressure, I'm on a medication. What do I do now? Here's what you do. You go on a very simple diet. This is a vegetarian program. The Filipino diet is about 35-40% fat. 30 to 35 to 40% fat. It would be better if it was less than 20% or less than 10%. This is now a 7% fat diet, which is very, very low. No added oils. Are you with me there? No frying. Okay, very simple foods. And this is a famous Dr. Ornish. He took 28 heart disease patients, and over the next year, he advised them to have a very low-fat diet. You know, don't have too much salt, don't have too much sugar, get into an exercise program, lose some weight, don't smoke, these kind of things. And at the end of 1 year, 82% of these narrowed artery portions had opened up. The plaque began to melt down, and the arteries gradually open up a little bit, just within 1 year. And so when you open up the arteries, the blood can flow more fully to the heart muscle, no more angina pain, no more crushing pain. You become a new person. Then he compared this to people, another 20 heart disease patients. They were following the American Heart Association diet, and on this kind of program where you can have a lot of fat, you can have cholesterol, all these kind of things, this is not a really healthy diet, but this is what we think that people would be willing to do, so that's what we offer as a Heart Association. And behold, in 1 year, 53% of the arteries that narrowed had become even more narrowed, because you cannot turn this disease around when you have so much fat in the diet and you're taking so much animal products, and as the American Heart Association allows you to have. Then there's a famous physician, Dr. Esselstyn. I talked about him this morning in my sermon. I talked about reversing heart disease. Remember? Remember? Okay. And he took the walking dead people. They couldn't do any more surgery on these people. They already had bypass surgeries and stents and so on. They're basically condemned to live another 5, 6, 7, 8 months or so. And then he took these patients, 18 of them, and he said, okay, you want to live? Yes. You want to do what I'm going to tell you? Yes. You want to enroll your spouse, your wife? Yes. You both want to make those lifestyle changes? Yes. You want to eat foods that come out of the hand of the master designer? Yes. That means no potato chips? Yes. It means no M&Ms? Yes. It means no chicken? Yes. It means no fish? Yes. We'll do it. No eggs? Yes. No dairy? Yes. We want to live. These were desperate people. And they did this. They were supposed to be dead in less than a year's time, 6 months. 15 out of these 18 patients that were supposed to live 6 months or so are still alive today after 26 years, because they turned this disease around. Let me show you what happened. There you see, this is a person, this is a coronary artery. And when you see it's very, very narrow, that means it's very clogged up, it's very narrow, it doesn't have very much blood flow through these narrow vessels. And when that happens, you have angina pain. You climb some stairs and pain. Same person, same vessel, 2.5 years later. What happened to the vessel here? Here it's almost no blood flow at all. Here it's fully restored. No medication, no bypass surgery, only one thing: fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes. Simple foods, just the way that God designed them, and the program was run by an atheist. That's right. Diabetes. This goes back for many, many years we have known this. I give you just one study here. These were 80 patients that were on insulin, and they received a very, very low-fat, natural whole food diet. What did I tell you earlier? That means fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes, right? And maybe a few nuts. This is very, very low-fat, natural food. Remember, it's one of the wings. And no animal products, plant foods, the other wing. And look, in 6 weeks, 50 of the 80 patients on insulin were totally off insulin, and they never had to go back as long as they followed with the diet. There's a very close relation between food and disease, between diabetes and disease. You don't have to be a diabetic. Diabetes is not caused by having too much sugar that you eat. Diabetes has to do with obesity, and nothing contributes to obesity more than the amount of fat, oil, and grease that you have. You know those pancit? Is there a lot of oil in pancit? I shouldn't really have said that. No, you're kicking me out of the church here, right? But you know, you have to really think about that. Now everybody's recommending coconut oil. You know, Indonesia and some of these countries are trying to put a very positive spin on a very cheap product, coconut oil. And they come up with all kinds of stories that this is going to help you, this and that. Coconut oil is the most saturated fat. This drives your cholesterol higher than anything that you can ever take. Do not listen to these promoters of coconut oil. Are you listening there? I just came back from New Zealand. They said, oh no, coconut oil is good. It reverses Alzheimer's. I said, where did you get this from? Oh, we read an article about it. How many people? 3 people in that study. I said, 3 people? We don't worry about that. We would look at 30,000 people. The Adventist Health Study had 96,000 people. That's good research, and you follow them up for 7 years, not just 3 people. It makes it sound scientific, but it really isn't. So be very careful about these things. High blood pressure. 60% could be off medication if they just made a few changes. I have a suspicion that some of the reason why we have so much of these chronic diseases has to do with this picture. We recommend a new cow. We recommend a new cow. We recommend a new diet. We recommend a new animal. We recommend this animal. You got it? Enjoy it. Look at the tail. 2 carrots. Look at the nose. Now don't look at every organ in the body there. So this is the most difficult thing in life. This is the most difficult thing for physicians. How do you motivate people? Pastors come to me, I don't want my church to be at the meat troughs of Egypt. I want them to get away from Egyptian food. How do I motivate them? I mean, I don't want to drive them. I just want to love them into becoming plant-based, whole food oriented. And they come to me, how do we do it without splitting the church into 2 groups? See? And all I can tell you is, be loving people. If you have some people that are eating meat in the church, hey, don't. Just be nice. Treat them like perfectly normal people. I mean, it is not very normal to eat corpses. It's not normal in God's thinking to eat cadavers. No. It's not normal to eat sausages that are usually 80 to 95% and which are now considered to be the #1 grade carcinogen in the American diet, cancer causing, very clearly identified by the World Health Organization. On the other hand, you have beautiful mangoes. You have beautiful durian. Some people love those. And as you know, my wife is a lucky girl because whenever I get a durian, I always give it to her because that's one thing. When I came to her house the first time in Manila, I said to her, Lily, there's a pipe broken in the house here. And she ignored me, and I said, Lily, are you listening? You need to call a plumber. Have you called the plumber? I thought to myself, what is going on with my wife? I mean, these people ignore the obvious problem, and it was really... And I thought to myself, why did I marry into a Filipino family? They don't understand anything about plumbing. Oh. And then her father rang the bell, and all the employees came, and they all gathered on top of the garage. And then he said, oh, we have our son-in-law here, his first time in Manila. Wow, let's celebrate this. We got from Davao some special fruits. And he showed those thorny little things, big things there. And all of a sudden, oh no. And then he said, bring me a bolo knife. And then, I need a mask. And then he said, they're just coming just for you. 7 of them. And he was so proud. You know, he is integrating me now into the family. He is being accepted as the son in the family. And he had, oh no. And then he gave me that first segment. You know, they come sort of with a seed and with all this, looks like avocado that's very overripe. And I said, oh no. But I had to be nice. I mean, these are special people, and I love this girl. I didn't want to blow it, right? So I said, Lord, give me strength. Plug up my nose or something. They said it tasted like heaven, but it... So I was able to endure that first one. And then her father said, oh, this was just the first one. It was not a very good one. Let's get another one open. Another one. What could I do? Nothing. Another one. Oh, no. Another one. He had six of these seeds or segments, right? Oh, and it was just... And I know they would remember me for the rest of my life. They would probably kick me out of the family if I would... And he said, 1 more, and 7 is the perfect number. It's in the Bible. 7 is the best. And oh, we have just from Davao, we've got it for you. Oh, 7, oh, we celebrate your feasting with us here. Feasting? Enduring. And then he said, 7, let's bring the 7. I said, Dad, have you ever heard of a sabbatical? You know, that's when you take a break. And he got the message. And it was my relief. I survived. And so since then, it's kind of a negative experience, as you can tell. Since that time, any time that there's some durian around and people want to, honor me, I'm always so happy when my wife is around and can say, honey, this is just for you. I sacrifice myself for you. So, in closing, these are the kind of foods that we should aim for. Just think about it. This is God's foods. You know, if you have some animal products, if you have some chicken, if you have some fish, it's not the best food, but if that's the best you can do, it's okay. But think about it and think how you can best honor God with having a full, high-quality life. And you also remember, we are role models for other people. When you eat those corpses, you're not really a role model for other people. And I'm always amazed how people can thank God before they dig in on these flesh foods. I don't understand. I mean, I can understand that you ask the Lord, forgive me for eating these flesh foods. But to praise the Lord for it, I don't understand that. I think we need to have a little bit of a twisting up here, okay? Okay? So, these are my thoughts, even though I've been kind of a little bit harsh on you by talking about corpses and cadavers. I still love you folks because when I married this girl, she was eating cadavers. And I was eating cadavers. But then we got married, we said, no more cadavers. Well, she still have one of those chickens once in a while, right? But she has come on board now. And it all takes loving care and a little bit of patience, okay? So, where are our doctors? We have some question answer period? We have, oh yeah, yeah. But I think, you know, when my wife stands up, I know it's important. So she must have something on her mind, just for a moment. You know, I have to be nice to her. Because tomorrow morning I'm leaving for Nashville. And I want to leave in good graces. So my dear, what's on your mind? Like this.
Why did you come this weekend? It was a special health weekend, wasn't it? Right? Right? And it is a weekend since last night, and at this point, it was a time of learning, a time of confirmation and affirmation,
And
of
confrontation.
and confrontation. And so, you know, we both are teachers and educators. So you have been the students. And we teachers and educators also love to affirm and to praise you. And we have something here that that we would like to share with you based on how much you've learned and how good students you've been.
So you're going to
this
get a
past
quiz
term.
now. You get a quiz.
Yes.
Is that what you're doing? A
Right,
test?
right. Here's a test.
Oh.
What is this fruit that is one of the highest source of vitamin C and phytochemicals and fiber? Yes? What is this? Pomegranate. Pomegranate.
Okay.
Do you know in the Bible the high priests were wearing in their robes that they would go into the holy place and the most holy place? They had, I'm sure they were not this big, small little pomegranates tied to their robes. All right, so you know what this pomegranate is. What's the best way to take out the fruit? Could you stand? The seeds. Go ahead. She cuts it in half, crosswise. Okay.
You like that, one half, take the one half, then get a ladle, wooden ladle perhaps, pok, 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 and then you have the bowl beneath, the half, then, and all the seeds will come out
So poke,
neatly.
poke, 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 poke.
You don't have to.
Okay.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Give it to her.
Yes, she certainly knows how to get it.
Lady poke, 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 poke. Okay,
Bok,
okay,
bok,
okay,
bok,
okay.
bok.
Okay, who else?
All right, but I don't do it that way, Manang. I don't do it that way. Does anybody else have I consider it a better way of doing it, without stain, without mess. Pastor.
Okay. What I do is I cut it sometimes in segments, and then I get a bowl or a container where I put a lot of water, and then I remove the seeds under the water. That way it won't go anywhere, it won't stain me, and then I drain it, and it's best for salads. And
She gets it, and yes, in fact, the easiest and the fastest way is to have a big bowl, and then a strainer in the bowl, and then fill it up. And since your hands will be underwater, taking out all the seeds, I choose to have warm water. You can have cold too, but do everything underwater. So you will have the big bowl and the sieve. What's a sieve in Filipino? Salat? Oh, salakan. Okay, and I forgot. and then you just put the pomegranate underneath the water, cut it underneath the water, split it, and do it as fast as possible because there's no mess. Everything is underwater.
What happens to the
And
white stuff?
The white stuff, the core, just floats. And the seeds go down on the sieve. So you just get a colander or another sieve or a big spoon with holes and just take out the core that's floating and then put the colander up. You have all the
Okay,
pomegranate.
I think Joy had the right
That's
answer,
great.
right? Is that what you do?
Okay.
Is that what you do? Underwater?
And
There you go.
all right. We eat the seeds. I make the most wonderful tabbouleh with this and the bulgur wheat. I know of a person today that has stepped into your church for the very, very first time in her life. And she considers it a spirit-led journey. And this is Shirley. Shirley, I hope that this is just the beginning of a wonderful learning and trip, and all these folks welcome you. All right. Well, I will tell you, this is a very special knife. My husband is from the famous city of Germany called Solingen. Solingen. And for any one of you that knows a little bit about Solingen, Solingen in Germany is the famous city in the world that makes the sharpest knives, that makes the sharpest shavers, blades. The best scissors of barbers use Solingen scissors, okay? And my father used to cut my brother's hair with Solingen scissors. Of course, I didn't know that. And so when my parents came to the United States to meet my special man for the first time, my father said, "Well, young man, I know you're from Germany, but where from Germany?" And he says, "Well, I'm from Solingen, sir." "Oh, Solingen." And he says, "Well, if you're half as sharp as your city, maybe you can have our daughter." So these Solingen knives is presented to CHIP graduates, those that go through the program and choose to move in the direction of the green, which is whole foods, fruits, vegetables, grains, and legumes. Why? Because you should never use this knife to cut anything that has eyes or a mother. okay? So I would like to first give this knives to the ones that were here last night, so that you've taken the whole educational program, at least for the 2 days. So I don't know if I have enough, but could you stand, please? Those that were, of course, here today and were here last night. Now you have to be honest, right? It was a big group, wasn't it? Yeah? All right. Well, I'm going to give it first to the oldest and the most mature. You're the oldest. And how young are you?
I'm the one cutting. I am 80 years old.
87.
Whoa! Very good. And
He's a gentleman, no.
And I'll leave that up to
Thank you, Doctor. I'm 85, young.
85.
Oh, yes.
Anybody else in the 80s that was here last night? All right. Very good. And there's another. That's wonderful. You're 82. Oh, look at that. Over there. 92. Oh, my. You're 18? Oh, man, you died.
This is only for vegetarians. You have to return your knife if you're not.
Okay, and I'm going to. Oh, you're together. All right. And I think I'll pass this last one to the couple that has really made it possible for us to be here. And we're looking forward to more friendships. And just a couple more. Oh, there's one more. Go ahead, dear.
I just found it.
Okay. I'm giving out one of my 8 different CDs, and this one is both vocal and piano. So the person that'll answer will definitely get this. Okay, this morning, what are the 2 most important components of having a great, famous hymn? What are the 2 components to make music famous? June. What? The poet and the composer, right? All right. And all the best to you. You're welcome. And the last one is my husband's book that has circulated over 2 million of them and has been translated into 26 languages, including the Philippines.
We're waiting for Ilocano now.
And Ilocano now also. That's really marvelous. Things are really happening in Manila and Bacolod and Cebu and so forth. So you didn't show the video of that.
There's 600 people in Manila every Sunday doing exercises for the CHIP program. 600 people. Just made the news there. We got some television coverage on it. 600 people every Sunday in response to the CHIP program. So things are really happening there.
Okay, so one question, and the one that'll do it right will get the book. Stand up if you can identify and spell the number 1 killer that my husband spoke about. The number 1 killer.
Cardiac disease?
No, it's just one word. Cancer? No, he didn't talk much about cancer.
No. How do you spell it?
Atherosclerotic.
Arteriosclerosis. Now you can get the book when you can spell it.
That's a different story.
Anybody wants to try? Arteriosclerosis.
Athero. Atherosclerosis.
Okay, atherosclerosis spells A-T-H-E.
A-T, what is it?
A.
T.
Atheros, yeah.
Again, A.
T.
It's correct. A-T. You don't know how to spell it. Yeah.
Arterio, it's athero. Okay.
A.
A-T-E.
No.
No. A-T-H-E-R-O-S-C.
O.
No. L-E. R-O-S-I-S.
I think we should.
I-S.
You get it for effort, okay?
Atherosclerosis.
You got it. You got it. Good.
All right. Very good. You're wonderful students.
Atherosclerosis, S-I-S. Okay, you deserve it. Thank you so much. We had planned to have our question answer period sharp at 3:30, and we are just a little bit on Filipino time right now. Is that okay? Because we want to really work with our distinguished church members here, physicians, the Wilsons, to maybe allow us to give you a chance to ask some of the questions. Is your husband here? Oh no, he's there. Okay. So, you still up to some questions, or you rather want to go home? If you want to go home, it's fine. We understand. It's beyond the time. But if you want to stay, okay. Questions. Now remember, I will be very I will be very democratic. I will answer all the easy questions and the other questions I gave to the doctors here.
Very easy question, doctor. I happen to be a pastor. And often we're invited to parties. And on the table are food, chicken, fish, vegetables, all right. And we're asked to pray about the food, for the food. Now, what shall I pray? I'm confused.
I understand.
Lord,
I understand.
bless this chicken.
I understand.
All right, thank you.
You say, "Dear Lord, bless the food that you can bless." Amen.
Dr. Hans, I for one am very thankful for this seminar which I have attended since last night. And thank you very much for this very extensive study of this seminar. We all know that bad food causes bad effects and diseases in our body. But how I wish that there will be also some presentation of a positive side. What I mean by positive is we all know that we should eat proper diet. All those fruits, vegetables, nuts, legumes, grain, and so on. But there is no, especially Filipinos who are vegetarian in the Philippines. They are eating food that is vegetarian, yes, but they don't know what quantity. It's not balanced as I see it. So how I wish there will be a presentation of samples of menus good for, say, 3 weeks 21 days, you said, for what kind of breakfast, lunch, and supper, sample of those, the right quality, the right variety, and the right quantity of it. If that will be presented to the church members, I'm sure it will help a lot for church members to go on a proper plant-based diet.
Are you talking about the Philippines now? Are you talking about the Philippines?
Yes, but I am here now. I am now
understand.
a citizen here.
But the question is asked
For the Philippines and
Philippines
also
here.
us here,
Okay.
Filipinos here in the U.S.
Yeah. You have to recognize that in the Philippines, especially in the countryside, sometimes you have to be a little bit more generous in terms of what food is available. For instance, when I am up in Alaska, I don't tell the Inuits, the Eskimos, no more fish, no more salmon, no more, these kind of foods. I say, enjoy the foods that you have up there because you're very limited in your supply. But then I say, but if you live in the big city of the main city there's no reason why you couldn't practice a diet that we recommend to all people. But up there among these Eskimo villages, they wouldn't be able to fly the food in. There are no airports, and even if you could, it's very expensive. It's the same thing in the Philippines. In some of these, what do you call the little villages there? In the barrios, if they need to have their chicken, there's some chicken running around. It's not a big issue. They do the best they can. But if you're living in this country, there's absolutely no excuse to move towards a plant-based diet. So we need to be gentle, we need to be tolerant, and it depends in part where we are. It also depends on what you grew up in. Some people can make the changes immediately, some people can't. So we need to be loving to all people, but we need to hold before the people, there's a goal to strive for. And when you do this, it becomes an exciting journey. You enjoy this. And your food bill goes down by 30 to 40%. You pay less for food as you move towards a vegetarian diet. Okay? Yes.
Yes, thank you very much. This is in relation to that plant-based diet. Which is better, processed plant-based diet or plant-based food or processed meat products? In other words, in our church, sometimes we use processed vegetables, processed vegetarians, they say. So I was wondering whether it has also labels.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. I have a conflict of interest here because Lily's parents started the CVI Vegetarian Food Company, right? And I helped them with it in the early days. They are not really, shall we say, the ideal foods. They're still man-made foods. But they're providing a bridge for people that are meat eaters. They're used to these kind of products. For them, it's like this. There's a river here. These people are heavy meat eaters. That's all they know. They've never heard about these things. But then they become aware, and they said, we want to cross over to the other side. And so they go on the bridge, and they have some of these meat analogs, the tapas and these kind of things, right? Are you with me there? Yeah, vegetapa. Okay? So this is helping them to transition to the other side. But here's the trouble. When you are getting into these veggie tapas and so on, you enjoy them so much that you stay on the bridge and you forget to go to the other side. So these are really bridging foods. And that's what I told Lily's parents. I said, these are wonderful foods, but, they should be the first step towards going to the other side. And I think that's probably the way they were designed to be. With Adventists, we have learned to stay on the bridge. We have all these high, refined, oftentimes expensive, high salt, high fat foods. It's falling short, I think, of God's ideal. But it's a bridging food. It gets us to the other side if we make progress. Am I coming through all right? So they have their place. Normally they have food products. They have their place. But we as Adventists should begin to move more to the other side and less. And we use it more as a, what's the word? A condiment. You know what a condiment is? It's a little spice. It's a little bit of a special treat. But don't make it a meat replacement. That would not be the right idea. Okay? Am I coming through all right there? I hope it's a diplomatic response, okay? Instead of condemning all these foods, no, they have their place, but it should be used under the right circumstances and as a special treat, let's say. Okay? Yeah. Okay, anybody else? Yes.
Just my question earlier, it's common nowadays for organic and inorganic food. Is it worth to spend in organic food for your daily food in the table?
I just realized that I'm hogging all the questions. I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be hogging questions about vegetarianism, should I? You know what hogging stands for, right? That has to do with pigs. I shouldn't be such a pig and hog all these questions. We have a team here. Organic foods.
Organic foods. Okay, there's a difference, in organic food. Actually, the organic and non-organic, if it's organic, actually you get the real nutrients that that food has. But when it is an inorganic, or those that are processed or GMO or genetically modified organism, they look good, they're big, but you don't get the nutrients that they have. So there is an advantage in actually eating an organic food. It's a little bit expensive, but your health is something that you have to invest. So there is a difference.